Welcome back to On the Wild, episode number 64. I'm Anuj Basker. With me, as always, Riley Keenan. And we're joined by a very special guest today, a good friend of ours, Ian Forsyth. How you doing, Ian?
I'm good. Appreciate you guys having me on, and I'm excited to do the show.
We appreciate you coming on. The NBA playoffs are still going on, but the NHL playoffs did start up this past week. So we're probably just going to break down each series. It's about 2 games in each series so far. Game 3 and 4, the matchups are tonight at the time of this recording. So we'll just say like what we've seen so far. Based on that, we'll make some sort of prediction. So we'll start it off with the Maple Leafs and Lightning. We're in the Toronto area, so we have a Leafs fan here in Riley. So we'll start it off with that one. To me, the Leafs' performances have kind of contrasted at each other. Like the first game, they absolutely dominated. The Stars played well. Matthews had a great goal. And Marner has played really well in both games, in my opinion, after what was last year, and he just didn't play too well. So to me, this series will probably go 7 games if I were to predict it. And what's the format for the NHL? Because I know different sports do it differently. So is it 2-2 and then 1-1-1 for series? Okay, so then Game 7 would be in Toronto. So I would probably lean Toronto in that game, but I wouldn't count out the Lightning because they've won back-to-back Stanley Cup, so can't really count them out.
Yeah, this one's tough. Like you said, game 1 was remarkable from the Leafs. They dominated from start to finish, and I think they really got to, they were empowered by their penalty kill. That was huge for them to shut down that 5-minute power play that Tampa had, and they had a couple others in that first period. And they seemed like they just dominated the pace of the game, whereas game 2, it seemed like they didn't have that spark. And I said this last week to a couple of people that I thought this series was going to be a lot like the 2016 NBA Finals, where every game's a blowout, and then we're going to get to a game 7 where it's just going to be a deadlock, and it's going to be a tough game to win. I still think that that's the same way. Going into Tampa, I'm nervous for Toronto, but I think they'll squeak out a win, and I think it'll go 1-1, and then we'll get all the way to game 7. It's tough because I really want to take the Leafs, but year after year they let me down, and once again we're going up against the back-to-back champions in the Tampa Bay Lightning, so it's not going to be easy. But I'm going to say Toronto because Vasilevsky on one point has had a weaker year than he's ever had in career or in his career, even though he still had like a .916 save percentage, which is remarkable. But we saw in game 1 that he's easily beatable, or he's not easily beatable. He's beatable, whereas in the last 2 playoffs, it seemed like it's impossible to get pucks by him. And it's kind of crazy that 2 years in a row now the Leafs are coming up against possibly the best goalie in the league. But I think they squeak it out in 7. I think Matthews and Marner have proved that they're going to come alive in this series. I think they're leading the playoffs right now in points with 5. And Tampa, they've had 2 great playoffs back to back, but I think this is the time where the run ends because, they're running into a hot Leafs team that seems like they've figured it out. And in all my life as a Leafs fan, I think this is the best team that we've had. So I think it's time for the Leafs to take it.
Yeah, I mean, like both you guys said, it is really tough because this is like the Leafs have maybe on paper the most talent, especially in like the forwards section. But yeah, the Lightning are back-to-back champions, so it's really hard to go against them. But what I would say, like what separates this year with the Leafs and why I think they look like they're built to make a run, as opposed to past years, is because like even when they were winning games against Boston, like the Bruins, and they were pushing them to 7 games, it was mostly like Matthews was struggling, and it was like the other guys who were scoring. So it's like you can't win a series, let alone like a Stanley Cup, with that. You need the stars producing. And like you guys said, like Anuj said, the 2 performances in games 1 and 2 contrasted each other, but Matthews has 5 points, Marner has 5 points. Even in the loss, Matthews put up 2 points. So I think there are lots of good signs even in the loss. And they, like I said, on paper, these guys are built. They have like Matthews, Marner, Nylander, Tavares, Riley. These are all studs on like a NHL, from an NHL standard. Any team would be happy to have any of those guys. So I think they're just built for a run. I think it's their year. But what I will say is it's hard to trust them because we haven't seen them win a series, like a single series. We haven't seen it since, I don't even know when the last time they won a series was, like 2005 or something like that. So
2004, I believe.
Yeah, 2004. So like the Matt Sundin days. But what I'll say is Matthews, talent-wise, from a talent perspective, is, in my opinion, better than Matt Sundin. So this team has definitely a higher potential than those teams ever had. Yeah, and I just think they're ready to make a run. But if it were to go to a game 7, even though it's in Toronto, I would go with the Lightning just because of championship pedigree. So I'm going to go with the Leafs in 6. I think they closed out in 6.
Yeah, that's a really good point you made there, because I mean they played Montreal in 7 games last year, and they go down at home as well. And one point I want to add to you is, on paper you said this is the best Leafs game or Leafs team we've seen. I'd say especially on the goaltending end and the defensive end, and that's where it's most important, because obviously in the playoffs past the Leafs have struggled to score, and that's been their biggest issue in the last 2 years. I'd say prior to that it was goaltending was troublesome, but obviously Jack Campbell's had an incredible start to the season. He struggled in the middle and then he got hurt, but he's showing again that he's kind of back to that all-star form that he was in again. And I truly do believe in him. Obviously it's tough to battle a guy like Vasilevsky, but on defense, I think this is the most important part for the Leafs. I think they're built that like the best they've ever been built. Like I said, Morgan Riley, we know, Muzzin, we know, and Brody, we know, but guys like, Labushkin and Liljegren have taken a huge step up this year and have, proven that these guys are, they're young, but they have the veteran mindset, and they're a very smart player. And a guy like Liljegren, I really like him in this series. I think he's going to have a couple big, massive shifts. Obviously, he's not going to get a ton of ice time, but he's going to make big plays and big moments. So, but I'm going to have to agree with you there too. I think I might take the Leafs in 6 just because of the idea that I can't see them winning it, in a game 7. I think they're just
Exactly.
they're not built. Well, I wouldn't say they're not built for that, but Tampa, they have that pedigree. They know what they're going into with that kind of game and that kind of atmosphere. They're ready for it. Whereas the Leafs, they might be a little starstruck. So I'll go with the Leafs in 6, but it's nowhere near confident.
Yeah, me too.
And I have a question. If the Leafs were to make it past the Lightning, do you think they can make a Stanley Cup run? Or just in general?
I think so. Obviously, we haven't broken into the other series yet, but with the star power the Leafs have up front, if they can get out of this first round, that's such a monkey off the back that it's like there's no more. I don't think the confidence is an issue at that point. I think it's let's just play our game. And you got a 60-goal scorer, you got a 97-point man in Marner, you got a veteran leader in Tavares, and you got a guy like Nylander who's had an incredible season. These guys are firing on all forces, and I think the two biggest X factors for the Leafs are Engvall and Mikheyev, who have both had big years. So I don't know. I think they're set for a true run, like Ian said, if they can get by this first round.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I think if you look at all the teams in the East, and again, you look on paper, but also just how they've played this year, chemistry wise, like you have to remember they're young, but this core of Matthews, Marner, Nylander, Tavares, and Riley have been together for a few years now. So it's not like they're new to each other's games. And, that chemistry there is, that chemistry is there and it exists. So, yeah, I think they're absolutely built for a run. Because why? Like looking at all the teams in the East, there's no reason why not. Their only flaw really is that we haven't seen them win a series in the past. Like if we'd seen them win series in the past, I feel like most people would be saying they're the favorites just because, like Riley said, so much firepower.
Yeah, and it's weird. You come into every single one of these years in the Leafs playoffs, and you think, they've solved the problem they had from the year before. It's time to get it done, and they another problem creates itself. One problem that's been a standard for the Leafs over the last bunch of years is physicality. They haven't been physical. They've been outmatched by Boston. They were outmatched by Columbus. This year, it seems like they came out firing in that game with big hits. Kerfoot was being physical. Obviously, Clifford made a great hit and then made an unbelievably dumb hit right after that got him suspended. But the physicality has been there for the Leafs, and that's really what might set them apart. Not from the other teams. Obviously, they're still physical teams, but to be able to go from nowhere near physical to have like 2 guys on your team that hit, to have every single guy finishing their check, that's going to put, fear in the other team's eyes to know that they're coming at them. There's no free plays on the ice. So, yeah, once again, I'm taking the Leafs.
But moving on to the next series, we have Florida going up against Washington. So far, Capitals won game 1, 4-2, and then Florida came right back and won 5-1. I'm gonna take Florida in 6. I think Florida, just with how good they were in the regular season, I think they'll get it done. I think game 1 was kind of like I'm gonna use the term like the feel out game. Like I don't know how big that is in hockey, but I think Florida takes advantage off of a really great performance in game 2, and I think they get it done in 6 games. I'll give Washington a game because they won a cup a couple of years ago, and they still have great players like Alexander Ovechkin, so can't really dismiss them, but I'm gonna take Florida.
Yeah, I just want to preface my pick for this series by saying I think Alexander Ovechkin is the best goal scorer in the history of hockey. I think, like all things considered, he's an all-time great, the best goal scorer of all time. Kuznetsov, Nicholas Backstrom. They have a bunch of studs, but this isn't a series. I know the Capitals won the first game. I can't remember what the score was. What you said, 4-2.
4-2.
But it was absolutely a feel out game, like you said. It was just, in my opinion, from what I saw, it was just the Capitals, catching a team kind of like off guards, for lack of a better term. Just game one, caught them with a good performance. But I think the Panthers win 3 straight and close this out in 5. They're just the better team, top to bottom. Aaron Ekblad should be coming back, I think.
He was back for game 2.
He was back for game 2. Okay, my bad. And they won game 2, so I think that's also a huge factor going forward. The Panthers are the better team. I think they close it out in 5.
Yeah, I'm agree with both of you, but I'm going to go with the news here. Game 6, I think the Panthers will close it out because obviously with that championship team in former Washington, they're gonna win another game. I think they'll win one at home. But yeah, it comes down to goaltending. I think Bobrovsky just needs to be good enough to win this series. Whereas I think Vanecek and Samsonov, they've kind of been back and forth with who's been in goal. But the big thing for the Panthers, I think, has been the signings they had or the tradings this past season. Claude Giroux has fit like a glove in this offense, and Ben Sherratt has been massive for the Panthers on defense. So I think they just outmatch Washington so much, and obviously Washington does have that firepower, and I think they can squeak one out at home again. But Florida, I think, will just dominate this series. At the end of the day, they win the President's Trophy, and a lot of people talk about how the Leafs haven't won a series since 2004. I think the Panthers haven't won one since the '90s, so it's time for them to do so.
And going back to Ian's point about Ovechkin, I never really realized how historically dominant he has been. Because growing up, it was always Crosby or Ovechkin, and Riley, because we grew up together. It's always been Crosby for us. We have a lot of friends that were Crosby fans, so it kind of Ovechkin kind of got overshadowed. But just looking at his numbers and how what is he, third in all time scoring?
Yeah, I think if
on
he
the
keeps
cusp of that,
a 30 goal pace for the next 4 years, he'll have the record.
Yeah, so he's
which he's gonna do.
Yeah.
And how many times has he scored 50 goals? 9 times or something like that?
6, 7, 8. Yeah.
I don't crazy.
It's tough to ever beat that Rocket Richard record that he has right now.
Yeah.
But yeah.
It's an all-time great. But moving on to the next series, we have Carolina and Boston. Carolina came into the playoffs hot, winning 6 straight. And they've dominated the series so far, scoring 5 goals in both games. So I'm gonna take Carolina in 5 games. I'll give Boston a game just because I respect Boston. Just historically, from my perspective, they've always been a good team in the playoffs. So I'll give them 1 game, but I'm gonna take Carolina in 5. What about you guys?
Yeah, going into the series, I thought this could go 7. Obviously Carolina takes it 2 at home, and pretty convincingly too. And obviously without Anderson, I thought this series could go 7 because, Carolina was banking on that goaltending, but Ranta has filled in perfectly in his absence. I still think this series goes late because I think Boston has that, ability to scratch out a couple games. That top line is up there with the best in the league, and their defense has always been tough. I think it goes to 6, but I think Carolina takes. I think Boston's going to win 2 in a row at home, but then Carolina's going to, put their foot on the gas and end it there in 6.
Yeah, again, these are 2 really good teams. And it's hard to compare because the Hurricanes are kind of they've been in the playoffs the last few years, but relatively speaking, especially compared to Boston, they're a kind of a new team coming up, especially with guys like Sebastian Aho and all them, rising to playing their best hockey now, this season. So, but I think the Bruins, again, like the Lightning, have championship pedigree, and they know what it takes to make a finals run. So it's going to go deep because I do think the Hurricanes have the better team. They've had the better season, but I trust guys like Patrice Bergeron, Brad Marchand to step it up in the playoffs because that's what they do every single year. So I got the Bruins in probably 6.
You think they win 4 straight?
4 straight? I do. If it's 6 or 7, I think the Bruins are the better team, and I think they'll turn it around. I know it's hard to say 4 straight, but I really do believe the Bruins pull it out.
And compared to other sports, how much does championship pedigree that you've been saying, Ian? How much does that matter compared to other sports? Because you see it in the NBA. I mean, we saw it with LeBron for 8 straight years making the finals. But now you're seeing teams like Memphis come up without much experience, challenging teams like Golden State. So how do you think that compares that championship experience from one sport to another when looking at hockey? Like, how much does it really matter compared
I
to?
I would say it's pretty substantial in both, especially in the playoffs. I mean, obviously, especially in the playoffs, but less so in hockey than basketball, I would say. I bring it up in hockey because when it's between two really close teams and it's like, I'm not sure where to go, I just kind of use that as like a difference maker a lot of the times, like an X factor in the series. But I think it's not as big of a deal as in basketball, because basketball, one guy can have the ball in his hands a lot of the times. Look at teams like Phoenix, not to get into basketball too much right now, but they just go to guys like Chris Paul in the clutch because you can just, rely on them to make plays because they're just seasoned. He doesn't want a championship, obviously, but he knows what it takes to play in big games. But in hockey, I think it's more so just about like where the puck falls, to be honest with you, and like whose year it is, who's playing their best hockey at the right time.
Yeah. And I think it also on that point, like with basketball, you can point towards specific guys for winning a championship. Obviously, the whole team is in there. When you talk about the Raptors winning a title, everybody's got a championship and they all have championship pedigree. But a guy like Kawhi is the one you're going to look at, is wherever he goes, that team could be better. Maybe you don't really look at the Raptors as, they're going to win a championship because they have that championship pedigree. In the hockey, obviously, you can't point towards one guy winning a game. So I think championship pedigree in hockey means a little bit different. And I agree with Ian's point completely, because I think championship pedigree is important in hockey because you have gone deep in the playoffs. You've played, 20, 30 games in the playoffs. And listen, hockey playoffs are the toughest, I think, in the world in terms of just your body going through a lot. So, and you're playing every other night. So that championship pedigree, I think, is important in hockey in terms of being able to go deep, but I don't think it's important in terms of, your value and, you're going to win because you've had that championship pedigree. I think it comes, to where the puck falls, just like Ian said.
Right.
But moving on to the last series in the Eastern Conference, we have Pittsburgh and New York. This was the toughest series for me, just because game one went to overtime, triple overtime, and Pittsburgh squeaked it out, and they lost game two in New York. So I'm gonna say it goes 7, and I'm gonna go Pittsburgh. I honestly have no idea who's gonna win this series, but I'll go Pittsburgh.
This, I think, is the biggest toss-up, either this or the Wild against the Blues. I'm going to agree with you. I'm going to go Pittsburgh in 7, initially because of the way Pittsburgh's played in the past in the playoffs. They haven't got out of the first round in the last couple of years. So they're coming in with a vengeance to this series, especially in New York, where they've been bounced out a couple times. But the tough thing is with Igor Shesterkin on the other side. He's probably going to win the Vezina this year at goal. And the series kind of went a lot of the way I thought it was, but the Penguins are going to get a lot of shots, but Shesterkin's going to make it tough. And we saw it in that game one. Penguins take damn near 80 shots and squeak it out in overtime, which is remarkable. But at the end of the day, Sidney Crosby, Evgeny Malkin, Chris Letang, these guys are bred for championships and they know what it takes. Whereas New York, I think, is a lot younger on that other end. And I think Pittsburgh goaltending just needs to be good enough. Last year, they should have made it out the first round, but Tristan Jarry couldn't make a glove save to save his life. I think this goes 7 because to be able to split it in New York was huge for them because, Madison Square Garden is a crazy crowd. So to go back to Pittsburgh 1-1, I think is massive. I think the Penguins take it in 7.
Yeah, I would agree that this is the biggest toss-up on both sides of the bracket for sure, because these teams are just so evenly matched, both on like the forward group. They both have guys like, Panarin and Crosby who can just put the puck in the net. You can rely on them. And they both also have like defense and guys who know what it takes to go deep into the playoffs. But I'm gonna agree with you guys. I'm gonna go Pittsburgh in 7. If for nothing else, just because I'm a huge Crosby fan and he hasn't made a run in a couple of years, like you said. Or the Penguins haven't made a run in a couple of years. They got swept by the Islanders, which was just embarrassing. So Crosby's playing with a chip on his shoulder. Malkin's playing with a chip on his shoulder. And I just don't think they're going to get beat out in the first round. I just don't see it happening. But I think it goes 7 because the Rangers definitely have a really good team and it's very evenly matched. But yeah, Penguins in 7.
Cool. But moving on to the Western Conference, we'll start it off with the Edmonton Oilers and the LA Kings. Much like we said about an earlier series, I honestly forget which one, but kind of like the feel-out game in game one, the Kings took it in Edmonton, and then Edmonton bounced right back and won 6-0. Which, side note, I feel like there's been a lot more scoring in this playoffs than I've ever seen before. I swear there's a lot more 5-6 goal games than I've seen before. But Edmonton bounced back, winning 6-0 in game two. They have the best player in the world, in my opinion, with Connor McDavid. I think they get it done in 5 or 6 games. I'll go 6. I know what, I'll go 5. So I got the Oilers in 5. What about you guys?
I'm going to go with the Oilers in 6. Personally, I think the Kings, they when you look at their lineup, there's not a lot of notable guys that you look towards, but they got a lot of guys that just work their butts off. And obviously they don't have Drew Doughty, so that already looks like it's going to be tough for them to squeak it out. But their defense has been really good this year. Pettersson's in goal. I'm pretty sure they're not going with Quick for the rest of the series. And I do like Pettersson. He's kind of a weird goalie, but he's solid. But like you said, Connor McDavid's the best player in the world. I think that's objective at this point. And Draisaitl's incredible. And, Nurse getting him back has been massive. And Mike Smith has been potentially the best goalie in the league in the last, half of the season. And that's massive for Edmonton because goaltending's always been their problem. So I think they do win it in 6. That Game 2 win was massive for them just to run it, go up on them like crazy. I think it's going to be I think every game's going to be close from here on out, but I think Edmonton's going to be dominating the pace of it. But, the Kings defense and their goaltending is going to be able to keep them in it, but it's not going to be able to, finish the game.
Yeah, I'm gonna go Oilers in 6 as well. Like you said, the Kings' strength as a team is that they have a really good team mentality. They don't have a lot of superstars who they rely on, or even stars for that matter. But they just work hard. They just play a good team game. They have a nice mentality, which is really important in the playoffs. That's more important than stars sometimes. So, but they just don't have enough to beat the Oilers. Not without Drew Doughty. If Drew Doughty was in, my pick might be different because he would be a great way to offset Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl. But without him, they just don't have enough on both ends of the ice to stop them. Like you said, McDavid's the best player in the world, and Draisaitl is not far below. So, yeah, the Oilers are going to get out of the first round for sure. I got them in 6.
I just want to jump on your point before moving on about offsetting it. I think if there is one way the Kings win this series, it'll be because of their play at the center position. Because obviously you're looking at McDavid and Draisaitl on the other side, lines 1 and 2. Well, the Kings got Kopitar, who's perennial Selke conversation kind of guy, and then Philip Deneau, who in the playoffs last year for Montreal shut down Matthews. He was able to shut down every center he faced on the other side. He's winning I think 60-70% of his draws. If he can play like that, it's going to be tough on guys like Draisaitl, McDavid, to push down the ice. But obviously we know what they can do and the speed and the skill they have. So it'll be the center play that could possibly shift the series. But at the end of the day, I think Edmonton's built for this.
Yeah, it's definitely, I think the Kings, to your point, definitely are it's a good matchup for them against the Oilers because they have a lot of good defensive guys like Kopitar and whatnot. And Deneau, that's a great point. He's a really good piece. Made it to the Cup final last year. That's a great, playoff guy to add to your team if you're trying to make a run. I just don't think they have enough against the talent of Edmonton because, again, McDavid and Draisaitl, that's like Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving in the NBA. It's just so much skill, so much talent. You can't stop it, to be honest.
Yeah, we just gotta hope that they don't lose like Katie and Kyrie did.
Yeah,
but
against bad analogy.
But moving on to the next series, we got the Stars and the Flames, back-to-back shutouts on opposite ends. The Flames lost game 1, or sorry, they won game 1, 1-0, and then Dallas came back and won 2-0 in game 2. I saw a lot of predictions before the playoffs started that had the Flames going to the finals. So there's a lot of expectations there. So I'm going to pick them to make it out of the first round at least. With how this series is going so far, I think it's going to come down to goaltending and whose goalie plays better down the stretch. But I'll go Flames in 6 or 7.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I'm going to go with the Flames in 6 because, like you said, Markstrom was incredible for Calgary this year. He'll be in the Vezina conversation. And I think Ottinger is good for Dallas. I mean, he got a shutout game too. Like, there's nothing bad you can really say about it. And Dallas, we got to remember, in the bubble, they went to the finals. They played Tampa. Obviously, they went down, but, guys like Seguin were riddled with injuries. They're going to need to battle to stay in the series because personally, I think Calgary is the most built team to make a run in the playoffs. Just the way that, you got guys like Gaudreau and Lindholm, the skill guys on the offensive end, but then you got a guy like Kachuk who can put it in the back of the net, make a great pass, but he can also absolutely deck you and fight your toughest guy. That's already massive. And then you look at the defensive guys they have, like Noah Hannafin, Anderson. These are big guys that are going to be able to shut down and a move like trading for Tyler Toffoli was huge for them as well. A guy that can, he's sneaky with it. He'll struggle for a couple weeks, but then he'll pot it 5 times in 2 games. And then, yeah, obviously, like I said, the goaltending's great. So I think Calgary wins it in 6, just because Dallas is a team that they can scratch out wins and they play well defensively and they play good enough to keep it close. But Calgary, I think they're going to be incredibly scared.
Yeah, I think like you said, I was going to make the exact same point about how Calgary is just built for the playoffs. They're built more so for the playoffs than regular season if you look at their roster, because they're one of those teams where they have kind of a core. They have like a top 7 of Gaudreau, Lindholm, Kachuk, which in my opinion is the best line in hockey, definitely the best line in hockey right now. And then Mangia Payne, if I'm saying that name right, Anderson, Noah Hannafin, Markstrom. That's kind of their core. And that's one of the best cores in the playoffs. And if you have that, you have a chance to go really far. So like the Panthers Capitals series, I don't think this really is a series. I don't really see a way the Stars win, 4 games against this team. So I got the Flames in 5.
Okay, but moving on to St. Louis and Minnesota, this one was kind of tough for me. I think it goes 7, and I think because St. Louis, we've been talking about championship pedigree a lot so far. They won the Stanley Cup in 2019 when they beat Boston. So I'm a lean St. Louis, but I think it goes 7.
Yeah, I think the series goes 7 as well. I think this is going to be, obviously, I think Pens and Rangers is the biggest toss-up, but I think this is the most exciting series. Kaprizov is the first guy I want to mention. 108 points this year in his second year in the NHL. People talked about him being overpaid last year in just 48 games. Nobody's talking about that anymore. This guy's a legit superstar. He had a hat trick in game 2, in a tough win. Husso and net for the Blues is a good piece, and I think Bennington's a good backup to have, but I really can't trust either side. And then on the other side with the Wild, you got a guy like Cam Talbot who did prove himself this year, but you make a trade for Marc-Andre Fleury. How can you not play him? So I think he's the reason I think that Wild will take it, because Marc-Andre Fleury, we know this guy can step it up in the playoffs, and he's coming off of 3 championships with Pittsburgh. And I can't. The Minnesota team is they got a lot of guys that just never give up on the play. I kind of compare them a little bit to Montreal last year, where it's just you got a couple pieces that can get you 30 goals, but everybody else could get you 20. You never really know who's going to pop off on any given night for that team, and that makes them dangerous. But at the same time, the Blues, I think if you're playing 5-on-5, I'm giving this series to the Wild every day of the week. But if they get into penalty trouble, the Blues power play is up there with the best in the league. And I think 5 guys got 42 goals on the power play, which is insane. So yeah, they got to stay out of the box, but I think the Wild take it.
Yeah, I also think the Wild take it, probably in 6 games. But I like a lot of people are saying this series is a toss-up. I don't really think it is. I'm really high on the Wild. They could be like my dark horse pick to make it. I know they finished with a really good record, but I say dark horse just because a lot of people probably won't pick them to actually win the championship. But I'm really high on this Wild team. I think they're going to roll over the Blues with no real problems. Because like you said, Kaprizov has inserted himself into like the top 10 players in the league conversation, like without a doubt. He's fun to watch. He's box office. And they have, like you said, they go 4 lines deep. Minnesota, they go 4 lines deep on forwards and 3 lines deep on defense. They have a really good goalie in Marc-Andre Fleury, which was a huge acquisition. I swear I've never seen that before, where a team just picks up a goalie at the trade deadline and then turns them into their starter and for the preceding playoffs. But that's what they're doing, and I think it was a great move. So yeah, I think the Wild are going to win this series, and I think they're going to go really far, to be honest.
Moving on to Colorado and Nashville. Colorado came into the playoffs on a terrible streak. I think they lost like 6 of their last 7. So they came in sort of on a losing streak, and then come out and blow out the Predators in game 1, 7-2. And then last night, I feel bad for Nashville's goalie. What's his name? Ingram? I don't know his first name, but he had 48 saves last night, or 49 saves, and they still lost in overtime 2-1. I'm gonna go with Colorado. I actually have Colorado winning the Stanley Cup if I were to predict. So I'm gonna say they win in 5 games, despite coming into the playoffs a little bit of a dry spell. I think they get it done in 5.
Yeah, I initially thought sweep just because of the fact that Saros isn't playing for the Predators. I think if he was playing, this would be a very different series. because we've known like NHL is the one league where you can see an upset on any given night. But with goaltending, like a hot goalie can really take over a series. And we've seen it in Colorado in the past when they run into a hot goalie, they just can't find the back of the net. They haven't been able to get out of the second round, where I think this year is going to be a bit different. I think they win this series in 5 in a gentleman's sweep because I think, Nashville's home crowd is ridiculous. I think they're going to win 1. And with a guy like Roman Josi on the defensive end, I think he's the Norris winner this year. You could give it to Hedman, you could give it to Makar, but I think this is Josi's year once again to win it for his second time. There's a lot of guys on Nashville that have had sneaky seasons, like Johansson and Forsberg. I think they've had really good years and they've progressed a lot. But when it comes down to it, Colorado, I think they're right behind Calgary in terms of being built for the playoffs. I think they're a better, overall team, but in terms of being built, I think they've put them second behind Calgary because McKinnon, Landeskog, Rantanen. I mean, you can only talk so much about those guys. And then Makar on defense. I mean, his goal in game 1 was absolutely ridiculous to, cut down on the left side and cut in and go, top shelf with the forehand. The guy's going to be the best defensive player in the league or best defenseman in the league, for years to come. I think it's just too hard to beat this Colorado team, especially, to win 4 games against these guys. It's no shot. So I think Colorado in 5.
Yeah, exactly. That's the most, simple way to put it is I just don't see the Predators winning 4 games against this Avalanche team. It's just not going to happen. But like you said, the Predators have one of the best, if not the best, home ice advantage in the entire NHL. So I think they definitely get 1 for sure. They definitely have a game where they frustrate McKinnon and Rantanen and, Colorado's stars. But like you said, Nathan McKinnon is one of the 3 best players in the NHL, in my opinion. Rantanen is an absolute stud. Cale Makar is going to be the best defenseman in the NHL, if he's not already. So I think the Avalanche are going to win this in 5, and they're set for a deep playoff run. I think they look different just when you play, especially through the first 2 games. They just, there's just a different feel with this team than years prior. So I think they're definitely set to make a run.
That concludes the first round of our predictions. I don't know about you guys. I don't really understand their format, the NHL playoffs format.
It is ridiculous. It was created to create rivalries, which I'm going to tell you how stupid that is, because you don't need to have a format to create rivalries to get the Penguins and Capitals to play each other. They're just going to play each other no matter what. If you're good, if you're a good team in the NHL, you're going to play another good team in the playoffs. You don't need to format. Like, I just find it ridiculous that, the Lightning and the Leafs should not have to play each other in the first round. These should be, the 2 and 3 seeds in the East, and they're playing each other in the first round. Like, it's ridiculous. You set up a playoffs that makes it, a little less exciting down the road, because you're not going to get the best of the best. You're getting, who clawed out of their series. Because now Toronto and Tampa are going to go to battle, whereas Florida is going to, have a not a light series against, who are they playing? Florida against Washington. They're going to have a tough series, but, Toronto's going to come in battle tested, whereas Florida is going to have a little bit of a break. Obviously, you're the number 1 seed, you get a break, but I find the playoffs scheduling and format to be ridiculous, personally.
I feel like it's not that hard. I mean, just seed them 1 to 8. Just do what the NBA does, and you're fine. You're gonna get the good matchups eventually.
Yeah, so they had it before. I don't know why they changed it.
And every now and then you're gonna get a Boston and Brooklyn in the first round just because of how seeding works. So I mean, I feel like that's the best format.
Yeah, the format's absolutely ridiculous. I remember that 3-year stretch where it was just Pens Capitals 3 years in a row, and it was like, everyone knew those were the 2 best teams in the East, arguably. So that should be a conference finals matchup, and people from the Capitals were actually complaining about it. So I'm not sure why they haven't changed it in the years since, because I haven't heard a lot of people, like analysts on TV or whatever, say that, I really like that format. I did a lot for the game. Like, no one seems to like it. So it's meant to create rivalries, but like if you're trying to rely on that to sell the game, then I think you have a different problem going on. So
it really just doesn't. The teams that earn their spot aren't earning anything, because you're playing a team. You come second in the East, you're playing potentially the 3rd best team. Like, there's no value in the regular season seeding if you do a format like this. So I think they need to bring it back. But yeah.
But before we get to trivia, we may as well talk about the NBA playoffs. We're in the second round currently. I'll get Ian's thoughts first, because we've been kind of talking about it for the last couple of weeks. But like, what have been your general thoughts on the playoffs? If you want to go through each series, you can. But like, what have you been thinking so far?
Yeah, sure. Like I was thinking even like before the playoffs started, like these are set up to be some of the best playoffs we've seen in years. Like specific years like 2016 stand out for like so many great playoff series, in one year. But yeah, like these playoffs have been the best in, you know, that I can remember in the past few years, just because there are so many teams that are competitive. Like all 16 teams that made it to the bracket had, something to offer, were competitive and whatnot. Like the Pelicans took the Suns 6 games,
Yeah.
so I think, these have just been ultra competitive. It's no longer the days of, Cavs Warriors meeting in the finals, which I do think had its value. I think that was, great for while it lasted. But yeah, I think it's definitely better now that it's more competitive, and these are some of the best playoffs that I've seen in a while. As for teams that I see going far, I think the Warriors are getting out of the West. Me personally, the way I've seen their lineup with Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, and Jordan Poole on the floor at the same time. Not only are they all lethal shooters, but they're all lethal shooters that know each other's favorite spots. They know how to find each other. They know, when to find each other. They know, when to defer to one another. And I think they're just, they're built for a championship. They're ultra confident. But yeah, these playoffs have been great for like exciting breakout stars like Ja Morant, Luka Doncic having, great performance after great performance. And also highlighting stuff like Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving, where maybe we have to question their, I don't know, their competitive spirit or whatnot, because to get swept in 4 games, like I don't think anyone expected that. So yeah, like I think these are some of the most exciting playoffs in a while, and it's an absolute toss-up going forward because there are so many teams that are competitive, and I think that's the best case scenario.
Yeah. Who would you your finals prediction be? Obviously, you said the Warriors coming out of the West. Who are you leaning towards coming out of the East?
I think it's the winner of Bucks Celtics that's going to come out of the East, just because of what we saw from the Celtics in the first round. They're such a built team right now, like that starting lineup of Smart, Brown, Tatum, Williams, and Horford. So hard to score on that lineup, like 4 or 5 great defenders. But with that said, I got Giannis and the Bucks coming out of the East. Yeah, Chris Middleton should be coming back before too long. And I think Giannis is the best player on the planet. So I think they're going to get it done. He's going to dominate on both ends of the floor. He hasn't even played particularly well in the first 2 games of the series by his standards, and he was still by far the most dominant player on the floor. So I got a Bucks Warriors finals. And my gut feeling right now is Warriors in 6 in that series. I just think they got it this year. I think this is the last year that they're making a serious run in this way, and I think they're going to get it done.
Yeah. Anuj, has your prediction changed at all as the second round has started?
I still have Phoenix and Miami.
Miami?
Yeah, because Phoenix, to me, like when we did the predictions with Nakeem, we were kind of on the same page, like me and Nakeem. The only team that could stop Phoenix, in our opinion, was Phoenix, and it looked scary for a second when Devin Booker went down, but he's back now, and I think he's played pretty well since he's been back. And I mean, this series they've kind of dominated, but I think it's just more of Dallas just doesn't have anybody to match up with Phoenix except for Luka. Like, I feel this is LeBron in Cleveland, his first stint all over again. He just needs help. He can't do everything by himself, so they're gonna have to supply him some more players. Hopefully, maybe like Rudy Gobert, because he's gonna be available. Just anything they can get him. But yeah, I think Phoenix comes out of the West. I think if it were to be Golden State, I think that'll be a really good series. I think it could go 6 or 7 games, but I'm gonna pick Phoenix. But in the East, I actually think Boston may take this series against Milwaukee. It'll be a toss-up, but I don't know, the way they've been defending Giannis, I don't think the role players around Milwaukee will be able to beat Boston 3 more times. And then they've done a pretty good job on Giannis. So I think Miami and Boston, 2 great defensive teams. I'll stick with Miami just because I picked them at the beginning, but it could go either way. And I have Phoenix winning the finals.
Yeah, I don't think my pick has changed either. From the start I said Bucks Suns. I'm gonna keep that. As much as I am high on the Warriors, and I think they're gonna make that series incredibly fun. Obviously, the Grizzlies. Let's not talk about. The series ain't over yet. It's 1-1. The Grizzlies. Ja put up 47 in game 2. It's gonna be tough. I still think the Warriors come out of it. But I mean, a Warriors Suns in a Heat Bucks conference final would be absolute money. But yeah, I think Bucks Suns take it out because, like Ian said, I think Giannis is the best player in the world. I think he will be for a very long time. And on the side of Phoenix, we saw they could win without Booker, they can win without Paul, and when they're together, they can ball. I mean, like it's ridiculous how good these guys are. They're winning at a crazy rate. And against Dallas, just like you said, it's LeBron and the Cavaliers. Luka has no help. 45 in game one. The guy's just balling out there. I hope he can get a guy like Rudy. But just to all the LeBron haters out there, if you like Luka now, you better stop hating on LeBron because it's the exact same situation. If Luka leaves in the next couple of years, and it's because they couldn't get anyone else and they couldn't make a deep run, no one's going to be complaining about Luka leaving. They're going to say it's justified. But in terms of LeBron, it's not fair. So I think that they need to, be on the same page with either one side. Either hate them both or like them both.
I think it's because of the expectations coming.
Yeah, in terms of expectations, yeah.
Just because like LeBron was the most highly touted player, maybe ever in sports to come into a sports league. Like he was the highest touted prospect ever, and then so people like kind of expected him to do it by himself, which is unfair. Mm-hmm. Whereas Luka, he was coming in from Europe. Like, yeah, he was the third pick in the draft. So he didn't have as big of expectations. So I think that's kind of what has to do with people kind of, feeling bad for him. But yeah, he should have that same energy. People should keep that same energy for both of them because they're both great players. That can't do by himself.
Yeah, and the parallels ring clear. I think being as we talked about hockey and now we're talking about basketball before. I think the comparison of like LeBron, Jordan to LeBron to Luka is it's very similar to Gretzky, Crosby, and now McDavid. LeBron and Crosby had insane expectations to come into the league that no one has ever had before, and they'll both tell you that about one another. And then now Luka coming to the league in his second year, people were saying he's going to win MVP. Every year people are putting him at the top of the ballot for MVP because of what he's able to do statistically and to lead a team. But, he just doesn't have that help yet a lot. Like, people on the other side, like McDavid, he hasn't had that help yet, even though he's had a couple, he's had a star player like Draisaitl. They're not too deep, just like Dallas. So I think it's pretty cool how they kind of line up pretty similarly. But I think the pressure's on, for the teams like the Warriors and the Suns, whereas Memphis and Dallas, I think, they don't have to win it now, but if they can, I mean, that's pretty incredible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like to your guys' point, because you guys both have, Phoenix going to the finals. Like I admit, they've been the best team in basketball all season, and it looks like it should be their year. It looks like everything's aligning for that team. But I think it's just one of those situations where if they get stuck in a series against the Warriors, which it looks like they will in the conference finals, I think the Warriors are the one team that they have enough shooting to frustrate the Suns and make them switch up their, defensive strategies and whatnot. And just that, little bit of throwing them off, I think will be enough. And I also think Steph Curry is good enough to win games on his own. He's one of those superstars, So yeah, that's the only reason I go there. But I admit the Suns are, I'm really, really high on the Suns as well, because if you look at the first two games of that Mavs-Suns series, like they're like Luka Doncic is doing his thing, but it's almost like the Suns are letting him. It's like, we'll let you score 40 points, but like Jalen Brunson's not getting anything. Spencer Dinwiddie's not getting anything, and you're not getting any help because we're going to frustrate you. Like, again, like you said, LeBron was frustrated in Cleveland. It's a very interesting parallel that you guys point out. But yeah, I think Luka definitely has GOAT potential, but the difference between him and LeBron is that LeBron kind of came in touting himself as like the next GOAT, like he wearing number 23, doing the, powder toss before games. He kind of put that expectations on himself. Meanwhile, Luka more so just kind of had a really crazy rookie year. So everyone was just like, this guy has GOAT potential. So I do feel for him in that aspect, but yeah, I agree. He should be held to the same standard as LeBron, and people, or vice versa. And people should understand that Luka doesn't have any help against the Suns. So it's not that he's not doing enough.
I agree, but I guess we do our trivia now. So how this was going to work is, I'm sure we're going to ask you 5 questions based on your your interests, what you like. Our high score is still 4. Thomas Pachernik, Alyssa Morrison, and now Nakeem Khan. He got 4 as well when he joined us a couple weeks ago. So see if you can get perfect. No one's done it yet, but let's see if you can you can do it. So,
All right.
Riley, we'll start you off with the first question.
Yeah. So we know you're a big Batman fan, as both of us are. So we're gonna get started with what 4 villains / heroes have appeared 3 times respectively in Batman films. Now, I want to preface this will not include Ben Affleck's Batman films because they aren't, strictly just as Batman. So it's going to be Keaton, Kilmer, Clooney, Bale, and Pattinson.
Okay.
But you only got what 4 villains have appeared 3 times respectively in Batman films? You only need to give me 2 because 4 is tough to do.
Okay. Well, the Joker.
Yep.
Got that one. 3 times. Does Catwoman count as a villain?
Yeah.
Okay, so they're
like hero / villain, like so Pfeiffer, Hathaway, and Kravitz were all.
okay. Yeah. So Joker, Catwoman.
You already got the question right, but at least you can try to finish it.
Okay, yeah. Can I get these last 2? Who else was in 3 times? Because like Riddler was twice, I think. Penguin was twice.
One of them is going to be like, it's like a tough. It's very tough for this one, and then the other one's just like you're going to realize it and be like, oh.
I don't think I know. All
right. Scarecrow appeared 3 times in each of the Nolan trilogy movies, and Robin, because obviously it's not the well-known Robin, but Robin from Batman Forever, Batman and Robin, and then The Dark Knight Rises.
Okay, Robin was. I don't know how I didn't think of that one. All right,
that one was tough.
I'll take the L on that one.
People don't really think about Dark Knight Rises as having Robin in it until the end, but
yeah. It's more of just a cop with like a random middle name.
yeah. But yeah, you got the question right. So 1 for 1.
Sweet.
Batman and Robin used to be my favorite movie when I was a little kid. It's crazy.
Wow.
But sticking with the superhero theme with question number 2, Doctor Strange comes out. It premiered yesterday, right? And officially releases today, at the time that we're recording it. In Infinity War, how many future possibilities of the coming conflict? I think that was the quote. Did Mr. Freeze? I was going to call him Mr. Freeze. Doctor Strange. How many possible futures did he see on Titan?
Okay. I think this is tough. I think 14 million, like 705 or something like that.
Oh, you're so close.
Oh,
it's 14,605.
Oh,
we'll give you a half.
As if I was that close.
We'll give you half a point for that.
Half point for that one. Oh my goodness! And this one is also a number question. So I'm gonna say like if you get within 50, you're right. Because this one's tough. Usually our third questions are toughest one. That was a tough one too. But obviously you're a big Breaking Bad fan.
Yeah.
And, Walt's official, spoilers to anyone who hasn't watched Breaking Bad, but Walt's official kill count is 12 in terms of who he has killed. However, how many deaths were on the hands of Walt?
Oh, geez, that is a tough one. Okay, well,
it's a lot.
That'll include so I guess you're not counting the prison murders that he organized in season 5 because he's responsible for those.
That's what I meant. How many deaths is he responsible for?
Okay, and you didn't count those to the original 12, obviously.
12 count as well. Is any death that happened because Walt was
okay? Okay, so there's the 12 that he killed, and then there's I think the 11 in prison, and then there's the plane crash, right? So that's 160. It was 167 or something like that. So I'm gonna go 23 plus 167 is, what is that? That's 190.
190.
I'll go 190.
190. The answer is 201. So I'm gonna give you. I'll give you half a point because I think it's a little too much. No, you know what? I'm giving you the point because that's a tough question, and to be able to you narrowed it down in a good way because the 11 prison and then the plane were the 2 biggest contributors, obviously apart from what he actually did himself. So I'll give you the correct answer there. Right. That's a tough one, but Walt.
That was a good question though. Wow, 200. Wow, what a guy.
What a guy, yeah.
What a guy.
Started as a science or chemistry teacher with cancer and finished. I won't even say for anyone who hasn't seen it. It's ridiculous.
You should go see it if you haven't seen it.
Go see it. Best show ever, I think.
Yeah, it is. No, it is.
Okay, keep that in mind. Another number question, by the way. How many points does LeBron James average in the NBA Finals?
NBA
And
Finals.
it's a decimal, but I'll round it to the nearest.
Oh, an NBA final. Oh, he goes off in the finals. That's got to be like, I'm going to go like 30, 31, something in that area. 30?
28.
28? Oh, I
Yeah.
swear I saw that the other day. I should have known that.
The first two finals kind of messed it up. If you just take his last
right.
8, I'm sure it would be a lot higher, but
Yeah.
2007 and 2011 kind of messed it up.
Right. I guess the Warriors, it's got to be like 34 or something like that.
Yeah. 1 year he averaged 38. So if you just take that, it could be, yeah. So.
So he's got 3.5. No.
2.5.
2.5.
No. 3.
3. Okay.
3. Wait. I don't know.
Okay,
I'll take either.
Right.
I don't know.
He's got 2.5.
2.5. There you go. Yeah.
Okay, so you're going for 3.5 here, which is very respectable. We've had a lot of ones.
Better than most.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So this one, I'm gonna go to one of your favorite rappers as well as mine. He actually dropped an album today as we're filming. Jack Harlow. We're gonna get you to finish the lyric. One of his songs. This is actually one of his features. It won a Grammy, Industry Baby with Lil Nas X.
Oh, okay.
So I'm gonna give you 2 bars, and you got to give me 2 bars.
I really hope it's not this one lyric.
No, I didn't want to make it too easy, but I also didn't want to make it,
No, I'm saying like parents. Yeah, PG or something.
So here we go. Keep that in mind with your answer, all right? Keep it respectable. All right. City talking, we taking notes. Tell them all to keep making posts. I give it to you.
Okay. Sorry, I'm trying to think.
City talk, we taking notes. Tell them all to keep making posts.
Wish he could, but he can't get close. Say I would, but I'm made of something.
Oh,
I don't know what the word is.
You got the first bar right.
Oh, the second
first bar was right. We're getting close. OG so proud of me. He like choking up while he making toast.
Right.
Close though. I'll give you another half point because you got the first part right. So we'll give him. You got 3.
3.
I'll take a half.
Again, better than most.
Better than most. Yeah. Also, that was probably one of the tougher ones we've ever had. We had a lot of number questions.
Yeah.
They were pretty deep-rooted questions. So
nothing will ever top Holden though. That was our first time, so you have to cut us some cut.
My goodness.
We asked him when was Shakespeare born. I did.
Oh Jesus.
That was before we tailored the question to the guest. We kind of just gave him 5 trivia questions.
We asked him like 5 random questions.
Yeah.
It was fun. But
before we wrap up, because you're here and you're a huge Batman fan, what is your take on the Batman versus the Dark Knight?
Okay, I think different fans will prefer a different movie. I think that's just the way to like. The Dark Knight is a really, really good movie that, Batman happens to be the main character in. Meanwhile, the Batman is like a character study on Bruce Wayne based off like, past iterations like comics and like past movies and whatnot. And it shows a side of Batman that like we've never seen before. It shows him as a detective, and shows him like, more deeply rooted into like the Gotham political system than we've ever seen. So yeah, I would say I prefer the Batman just as someone who that's what I go in kind of wanting to see. But the Dark Knight's a better movie, but the Batman's a better Batman movie, if that makes sense.
That's exactly what we said.
Yeah. I think you nailed it. Like if you're looking for a spectacle, you're gonna go into the Dark Knight. But if you're looking for a character study, then the Batman is the perfect movie. It's the best depiction of Batman we've seen. But you can never count out the Dark Knight. That is like I think you said it best. Like it is a phenomenal movie starring Batman. It's not really about the guy itself. It's kind of about the whole overarching story. And it's a trilogy as well. So
yeah, and that movie is more about like Batman's impact on other people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it's about how like Harvey Dent's impacted by him and how like Joker is kind of a result of him existing. It's not really about him in that movie that much.
Yeah.
To the same extent, definitely.
Yeah, but with that, I think it's a great place to wrap up here. Thank you so much, Ian, for joining us today. Taking time out of your day. We really appreciate you coming on today.
Yeah, no problem. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
for sure. But thank you guys for watching. Thank you for listening. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Comment down below, and we will see you all next week. Take it easy.
Stay wild.
Peace.